Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. My guest today is Dr. Josh Axe, who is a very familiar face. People who have been watching Healthy Living and CBN know you as a great friend, and it's wonderful to see you again, Josh.
Yeah, well, great to see you, Lori. Thanks so much for having me again.
So Josh is a natural doctor, and your website, draxe.com, is the #1 natural medicine website in the world, and you are one of the co-founders of Ancient Nutrition, which these are products I take every day. I love the collagen, keeps me young, and so many other things too. The author of many books, the keto diet, the probiotics. One of my favorites, Eat Dirt.
Yeah.
But you know, this brand new book that you wrote, Think This, Not That, is your first mental health book. So it's quite a departure for you from so many of the things that we've seen you through. Why a book about what we think?
Well, one of the things I realized, and I knew this when I used to run a full-time functional medicine practice working with patients, but food as medicine is powerful. Mindset medicine is even more powerful. One of the greatest things that determines our healing, and whether this is healing hypothyroidism or diabetes or autoimmune disease or chronic pain, is the healing signals that are sent from the brain down the spinal cord, out our nerves to the area that needs healing. And one of the things I discovered in doing research is that if you believe and have certain beliefs about healing an area, it is much more likely to heal. In fact, your brain will start creating new neural pathways. It'll send healing hormones and growth factors and signals that will allow those cells to regenerate in an area. Versus if you don't believe you're going to heal, your body won't do it, and that area will decay and start to die. So literally, and the Bible talks about this, the power of belief. I mean, Jesus says in certain places, your faith or your belief, that will heal you.
Oh, yes.
And so it's so important that our beliefs are correct. And so what I wanted to do is write a book that was really not about food as healing, but it was about mindset and the exact beliefs we need in order to heal, in order to experience breakthrough, in order to be the best we can be. I'll give you an example of what I saw in practice too, Lori. Oftentimes when I worked with patients, I could tell pretty quickly if they were likely to see results in complete healing or not, based on their beliefs or their attitude. Because I would sit down with patients, and sometimes I would say, well, I would go over what they were eating on a daily basis and some of the things they were doing lifestyle-wise, their medications. And I would look at those and say, okay, let's stop doing these things and let's start doing this. So rather than eat this, I would say eat this, not that, okay?
Yeah.
And I would get one of two responses. Sometimes people would say, oh, this sounds really hard. I want to keep eating my fried foods and my fast food and my processed food. And then others might say, well, Dr. Axe, this sounds great. You're telling me I can still eat chicken Parmesan. I just need to eat better flours, and I can still have chocolate cake. I just need to use the dark stuff, and I can still have, you know, I can do a smoothie, a strawberry milkshake, essentially. I just need to use these healthy ingredients. And I would say yes. And then I would also let them know, hey, this is where I want you to be 3 months from now. I believe you're going to be healed and God's going to restore your body. Some of them would follow through and be excited about the plan. Some, they just didn't believe in it. And based on that simple mindset and mind frame was so important for people healing. And also, I always like to write books based on the biggest thing that changed my life. You know, one of my first books, and I've talked about this in Eat Dirt and Ancient Remedies, is My Mom Healed from Cancer. And a big part of that was her food and her mindset. Those were two big things. So I've written books on my mom healing from cancer. Well, the other big thing that has really changed my life is my own beliefs and me finding my purpose and me overcoming limiting beliefs in my life. And so I wanted to write a book that really would help people break through those limiting beliefs that are keeping them from being who God truly created them to be.
Well, you know, I find that really sort of surprising because I've known you for many years, and you are one of the most optimistic, positive people, and very cheerful outlook. So it's hard for me to believe that you ever had sort of like negative thoughts before. And, you know, I feel sort of like a lot of people think that you just kind of either are optimistic or you aren't. You just you're a kind of glass half full or a glass half empty person. And don't realize that you can actually change your outlook on life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what got me starting to think negative, and it was a series of time in my life. And by the way, I think a lot of people are going to relate to this because we've all had something similar like this happen. So when I was a freshman in high school, I had a teacher ask me to stay after class. And I had just gone to a Christian school, my first time in a public school, freshman English. And the teacher said, Josh, would you stay after? I stayed after, and she said, what do you want to do after high school? And I said, I want to be a doctor. And the reason I said that was the year before, my mom had gone through breast cancer and chemotherapy and all the things. And I remember thinking to myself, when my mom was going through chemo, I want to help people like my mom, and I want to find a better, more natural way, so I want to be a doctor. When I told her I wanted to be a doctor, she laughed out loud.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know, I think so too. But she laughed and she said, listen, Josh, with your GPA, you'll never get into med school. She said, my own daughter had a 3.8 GPA, barely got in. She said, with your grades, you'll be lucky to graduate. She said, you got an F on this paper, you're getting a D- in my class, you need to try harder. By the way, 2 weeks after that, my mom brought me in to see a doctor. And he talked about me like I wasn't in the room, and he says, your son has really severe ADHD. He's going to have trouble learning, and I recommend he get on medications. Well, my mom didn't put me on medication. The medication was called Ritalin, and didn't put me on that. But I remember hearing, in the course of 2 weeks, a teacher tell me, you'll never get into med school, and then a doctor saying, you've got a learning disability, you have ADHD. And so then throughout high school, I thought, well, gosh, I'm not smart. I'm not only not smart, the doctor diagnosed me as being medically not smart, so why even try? I graduated with a C- GPA. I applied to a bunch of colleges, got denied by all of them, but there was one college I kind of wanted to go to. They wrote me a letter and they said, basically they said, you're not in, but if you come and take summer school and average above a 3.0, we'll let you in. It was the University of Kentucky. So I said, I don't want to be the kid that stays home. I really want to go and try. So I went, and the first class I had to take was English 101, and my first big assignment was a paper. And so I did the paper. I really tried this time. I handed it in, and then I had the teacher ask me a few days later. Her name was Miss Williams. She says, Josh, can you stay after class? And Lori, I thought, oh no, not this again. I probably failed. And she said, what's your major? And I said, well, I haven't chosen a major. She said, well, I think you should consider being an English or journalism major because you're a great writer. You literally got the highest grade in the class, and I think you're a really talented writer, great job. And I walked out of the classroom thinking, wow, I can do this. Now, I didn't go on to become a journalism major. Now, I have written 10 books now, but I did become a doctor. I graduated Johns Hopkins University later on with a 3.9 GPA. All that to say, I had one teacher and one doctor say something negative to me, and it totally crushed my self-esteem and my beliefs, and I started thinking very negatively. And then I had another teacher tell me, you're capable, you can do this. I decided to believe that truth and went on to do some things I'm really proud of. But you know what? If I would have held on to those negative limiting beliefs, you and I wouldn't be talking today. I never would have become a doctor, never would have started an ancient nutrition, never would have done any of those things. And so I think it's so important that people are aware of what they believe in. And oftentimes it starts in childhood. We have had somebody say something negative to us, and it totally destroys our mindset. And so that's why it's important to take every thought captive and replace it with the Word of God. And so that's why I wrote this book, is I truly believe that people need to heal their minds. And if they can do that, they're going to experience a breakthrough in their health, in their relationships, in their career, and all those areas.
Right. What you're saying, we just really have to talk about it, about the influence that we have on children. And I've seen so many parents who, you know, you're never going to amount to, and I've seen people talk to their kids that way, you're never going to succeed. And it's just, it's crushing. But then on the flip side, all you need is somebody who says, you're good, you're capable, I believe in you, believe in yourself. So the impact that we have on young people is just tremendous. You know, some of the things that you talk about in here remind me of coaching, because one of the things that I really have heard a lot about regarding sort of like sports is when you visualize success. You know, and you see people at the Olympics and they're like going through their routine, you know, visualizing getting a perfect 10. So talk about some of the things. You have 12 different mindsets that people kind of need to sort of take hold of in order to think positively.
Yeah, one of those is what I call visualization or realization. This is really based on the Bible. You know, God told Abraham, look at the stars of the sky. You know, so numerous will your descendants be. And so I really think that God uses this visualization for people like Abraham and others to really see the sort of future he wants us to have. And so one of the mind shifts is go from being non-specific and just kind of floating through life to visualizing what you want and then creating a specific plan in order to make that a reality. there's a lot of people I don't think that have really pictured exactly what they want in their life, what they want the relationships with their kids to look like, what they want their career to like, what they want their health to look like. So getting very specific about those things, visualizing what you want that to look like, and then creating a plan of what exactly do I need to do in my life. So let's say, for instance, somebody is watching this and they want to lose 30 pounds and get rid of their chronic pain and reverse a condition they have. Maybe it's a hormonal issue that they're having. And so they want to picture themselves in that great shape. Well, now we need to create a plan in order to make that a reality. So it really goes from actually the first step is prioritize. What are your biggest priorities in life? Go through your faith, go through your family, go through your fitness, go through your finances, and think about, what do I want each of those areas to look like? The next step is then visualize. So prioritize, visualize, then strategize.
Yeah.
What's the exact strategy and plan in order for that to happen? And then it's systematized, so create the habits and schedule in order to start moving in that direction, and then you're going to realize the results. So that's one example. I have some amazing graphics in the book that really go through how to do that.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to take a break and be right back with Dr. Josh Axe. The book is called Think This, Not That. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living, and we are continuing our discussion with Dr. Josh Axe. The book is called Think This, Not That. And you talked about visualizing success, and rather than, for example, thinking, oh, this workout's going to be so hard, think how great you're going to look in that size 4 dress or something like that. But also, I love the way you say you do sort of have to have a plan. You can't say just like, oh, I'm going to lose 30 pounds without figuring, well, that means every day I have to wake up at 5:30 and lift weights, and et cetera, et cetera. Talk about some of the other new mindsets that people need to adopt.
Let me share one mindset that I think people are really going to resonate with. And this is really connected to my grandfather. And by the way, my grandfather was a huge fan of Pat, watched the 700 Club every day, and lived to be 96 years old, was a World War II veteran. And I was at his funeral. This was several years ago. And there was the point in the funeral where the pastor asks everybody, does anyone have any final words about this person? My grandfather's name was Howard. So he said, are there any final words about Howard? And the man next to me immediately just kind of yells out in tears, Howard was my best friend. And I'm a little embarrassed to say this. My first thought wasn't compassion or empathy. It was, well, I don't think you're my grandfather's best friend, because I knew who my grandfather would probably say his best friend was. But then I realized, you know what? My grandfather, I'm sure there was hundreds of people in the room for my grandfather's funeral. I thought my grandfather probably was their best friend. In fact, he was probably the best friend of half the people in this room. And it made me start really thinking about defining success. I think most people define success about what they accomplish in life. We think about, well, did I get the raise? Well, did I make a certain amount of money? Was I able to retire at this point? Was I, did I get a certain level of recognition in my life? But what I realized about my grandfather is he never really had any great accomplishments. Like he was never on the cover of Forbes magazine or was never on a major TV show. He didn't have hardly any money when he retired. However, he became an incredible person. He didn't have an accomplishing mindset. He had a becoming mindset. My grandfather was generous. He was kind. He was loving. He helped transform the lives of so many people because of who he was as a person. In fact, a cool story, my grandfather, when he was in his 40s, he went from the Navy to work for this company called Ohio Bell, fixing telephone lines, poles outdoors. And in his 40s, he realized, this is not what I want to do the rest of my life. So him and my grandmother took their life savings and bought a lake and some land, and they started a campground and a swim park. So people held family reunions there, Christian retreats there, all kinds of things. And he would go back and he would pray for the campers, give them money, food. And at the funeral, people were just saying things like, Howard, saved our marriage. He did all these things. But my grandfather really took a risk and really focused on being a servant to others, making other people's lives great. It was the focus of his whole life. And so when I was at his funeral, I realized, I want to be like my grandfather. And there was someone else I admired before him. It was Lance Armstrong, because I was a triathlete, I was a cyclist, and I thought, well, Lance has accomplished all these great things. However, he got caught for doping, and he cheated. And I remember even in his book, he said, win at all costs. But it reminded me of the Bible verse of, what good is winning the world but losing your soul? And so I thought about, he had an accomplishing mindset. He would achieve and accomplish even if he lost his family. But you have someone like my grandfather who didn't care about accomplishments. He just wanted to become a certain sort of person. So this is one of the things I get to even more in the book of how my grandfather did this. But really, rather than focusing on just a to-do list, focus on a to-be list. So here's one that I did, and it really transformed my life, Lori. I'm going to be an encourager.
Oh,
I'm going to go around all day and just encourage others and look for the best in them. Because I was more negative at one point in my life. And when I started focusing and having this mind shift of, I will be an encourager. I will look for life in people. I know life and death is in the power of the tongue. I'm going to be the Miss Williams, not the Miss Noble, that teacher who goes and it gives people those living words. And that has been such a powerful thing for so many.
This is great stuff, and you have achieved that goal. You are so encouraging, and so many millions of people have benefited from it. Praise the Lord. All right, we're going to be right back with Dr. Josh Axe to talk more about his new book, Think This, Not That. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking with Dr. Josh Axe about his book, Think This, Not That, Mindsets that can transform you. And one of them is to stop thinking in a limited way, limited beliefs. I'm too old to start a new career. That's a limiting belief. Talk about why it's so important to get rid of those.
Yeah, well, basically, limiting beliefs are the thing that put a cap on your growth. And so if you want to achieve the greatest things you can in life or become the greatest person you can be, you have to eliminate limiting beliefs. You know, most of the time, limiting beliefs, they're about three different things. We have limiting beliefs about ourselves, as you said. I'm too old, it's too late in life, I have a genetic issue, or my DNA's bad, or whatever it was. It's sort of a victim mentality oftentimes, but it really comes into us believing negative things about ourselves. We also can have negative beliefs about others. Like, well, people are just bad in general, they'll take advantage of me, or something like that. And then also we have negative beliefs about just the world, about maybe the way God set it up, where there's a scarcity mentality. There's only so much to go around, and I need to fight others for it. And then, of course, with others, I also throw God in the mix there. A lot of times we have limiting beliefs about who God is. And so one of the things that's so important to is identify the limiting beliefs about ourselves, about God, about others, and about the world, because if we don't do that, we'll never experience a breakthrough. I'll give you an example. If I would have believed that I couldn't heal from this devastating illness that I personally had of the spine infection, then I probably would not have done the things I had done in order to heal. The other thing is my brain, if you don't believe you're going to heal, your brain will not seal those healing messages. I'll give you an example of this too in the placebo and the nocebo effect. The placebo effect is if you take a sugar pill or believe you're going to heal, in many cases you will. There are medical scientific studies showing this.
Absolutely.
Now here's a crazy one, Lauren. You might have heard of this one before, but there was a case study with a man, and the man had liver cancer. And his doctors diagnosed him with liver cancer and told him he'd have 3 months to live. Well, the man passed away 3 months later. They did an autopsy on him, and they realized, well, we misdiagnosed him. He had a small benign tumor on the side of his liver we could have removed, and he could have lived another 30 to 40 years. So the man had nothing wrong with him. He died because he believed he would die. Right. Our beliefs are that powerful. I still teach people to eat this, not that. Well, now I really believe the more powerful thing to teach people is to think this, not that. If you're thinking any of the wrong things about yourself, about God or the world, it'll keep you from healing. It'll keep you from blessing others. It'll keep you from doing those things you want to do in your life. Like, a lot of people have not written that book they were called to write. A lot of people have not pursued that career. A lot of people have not attempted to heal their condition because they've had a doctor tell them, you've got to live with this condition the rest of your life. You have to take this pill the rest of your life. And we've believed them. We are living in a world today, Lori, that is full of so many lies. You know, I mean, I know we experienced this over the past year. For instance, here's a lie we believe is that the government and medical experts know about health. They never study health. They study disease. They don't study health. So there's a lot of lies we believe, including about ourselves, that are keeping us from breakthrough. What people should do instead is this. Number one, write down, what is that lie I believe?
Yes.
First thing you should do, take that thought captive, write that down. The next thing you should do is write down, what should I believe? What's the most positive thing I should believe? And then go to the Bible and look at what the Bible says, and then go and ask others what you should believe and why you should believe it. So for instance, if you believe you're too old, well, write that down, and then write down, who is somebody that accomplished this? Somebody that reversed the disease, somebody that, walked the half marathon, somebody who did whatever that thing is you want to do, and they did it at your age, and then compile stories and the testimonials of that, and then read those daily, and then start to take action.
Our thoughts control everything. They are the most important things about ourselves, and yet we often don't even pay attention to what we're thinking. And this is such fantastic information. We're going to take one final break and be right back with Dr. Josh Axe. The book is called Think This, Not That. Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Josh Axe about his new book, Think This, Not That. And we just scratched the surface. There's so much more to this. Where can people find the book, but also find out more about you? You have such wonderful teachings on every possible subject.
Yeah, I would say, people should check out my new podcast. It's called The Dr. Josh Axe Show. I've had some amazing guests. Carrie Underwood was recently on. So many others. People can find that on iTunes or YouTube and just search Dr. Josh Axe. You'll find it on there. And then the book here is Think This, Not That. Lori, it's the best book I've ever written. I can say that with confidence. I wrote the entire thing while I was in bed and couldn't walk. Now I'm up and I have my health back. I truly believe it's the book that's going to help people experience that breakthrough they've been waiting for. By the way, if people go and buy the book today, they can go on Amazon or any bookstore, and then they go to joshaxe.com, so joshaxe.com, and then you just plug in the code you got when you bought the book. I'm giving people $500 worth of free content, including a video series, a workbook, and bonus interviews, loads and loads of content if they go and get the book today.
That is a fantastic offer. Well, God bless you. I'm so happy that everything turned out well for you, and there was a purpose behind it. You're going to help so many people by what you went through, and it was just, as always, a joy to see you, Josh. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks, Lauren. As always, God uses all things for good.
Indeed, He does. Absolutely. And thanks to you for being here for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. We'll see you again next week.